You know what it is? It's live with Tone Kapone. Let's go ahead and jump to another person in the seat, man. My brother, man, Gianno Caldwell, has written a book. He's here from Chicago, actually. Graduated from Simeon, all right?
Hey.
That's right. Got a book, man, Taken for Granted. I remember when you were telling me, like, last year, like, yo, bro, I'm, like, writing this book. It's crazy. I can't wait to get it out. And the special thing about Gianno Caldwell is really, the interesting part that a black man from the south side of Chicago is a Republican.
Whoa. Where's the thumb?
What in the hell is going on?
Well, not only that, I work for Fox News as a Fox News political analyst, and I host long-form documentaries for the network as well.
Wow. So, all right, let's go ahead before we jump into the book.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it'll kind of lead us right there. How does that happen? How does an African-American man from the south side of Chicago become a Republican?
So I got to paint the background real quick. I
Okay.
grew up on the south side, as you mentioned, extremely poor, lights, gas, and water off at the same time. I'm addicted to crack cocaine. I got involved in politics one day after riding through the area of Chicago. As we know, Inglewood, one of the hardest hit areas in terms of the violence. And I see this lady who I just knew was my mom. She looked drugged up and beat down, unfortunately. And I began to tear up, and my grandfather noticed. And he said, "What's wrong?" And I mentioned this lady. "What can I do to prevent this from happening?" It wasn't my mom. And he tells me about the elected officials, the power they have to create laws to create stiffer penalties for those who sell and distribute drugs. I said I wanted to be an elected official. The very next week, I started volunteering for my local alderman. So at the age of 14, I got involved in politics. And years later, I got involved in the conservative movement. And that came by way of me seeing what the Democrats were doing in Chicago, running the city, but nothing ever changes in our communities. Black folks still losing, and you got Democrats being voted in year after year. That's when I realized we were really being taken for granted.
All right. So that is the name of the book, Taken for Granted. Let's walk me through this process. What's going on?
Okay, so Taken for Granted, the rest of the title is How Conservatism Can Win Back the Americans That Liberalism Failed. I had a conversation with a brother on the street corner, a senior, older guy, and I was talking to him, pontificating my thoughts on what the Republican Party is. Racist is what I was taught. The Republican Party, a group of racists, slavery, Jim Crow, none of those things were true, but he pushed back. So at that point, I went and researched between the distinctions between Democrats and Republicans, and I saw that MLK was a Republican. Every piece of civil rights legislation that was sponsored and passed were pushed by way of Republicans, including the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which was pushed by LBJ, but Democrats in the Senate didn't want to support it. Saw the ideology of a Republican, conservative, pro-faith, all these different things, and it really resonated with me. And then it was months of depression after I realized that I was a conservative. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you can imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but so before we get into the book a little bit, the part of it with me is like, so why do you think the narrative has changed? You're in it. You're in politics. You constantly speaking on things. What did that narrative change where people think, all right, you're a Republican, you're racist, you're about rich people, you're all of this, and if you're a Democrat, you're all for everybody. You want all of these great things for the world.
I'm gonna be honest though, the Democratic Party is masterful in marketing and PR. Like, the manipulation machine is strong. I see you were drinking something, you almost choked on that one, but listen, it legitimately is though. Like, they've talked about this mass exodus from the Republican Party of those that we used to be back in the day. Most black folks were conservative. They talk about this mass exodus, which isn't true. There was a couple folks that flipped to Democrats when the laws began to change in the South. That wasn't true, but they came up with a strategy to market to black folks to the point that if you choose to even research the distinctions between the party, you can be considered an Uncle Tom or a coon. So it's so locked in tight that we vote Democrat 90% of the time, and we don't get anything for our vote. Real talk.
I mean, I will say this. I'm disagreeing on some points because I think the Republicans, I think both parties have a marketing machine. It's smart. It's smart. So there's nothing against it. But the thing of it is like, we have number 45 man, right?
Right.
And he's a Republican, right? And the fact that he can preach separatism in a sense where you have Mexicans coming across the border and he's painting them as criminals, And that's not true in a way. It's just not, because we know that the Mexicans are coming in and they are taking jobs that most people won't. They're getting treated a different type of way, but they're really just, it's really the American dream in a sense. They're pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and trying to make it better, not for themselves, but for their kids and the generations following. So I don't get that in that way.
So let me say this, and I talk about this on social media all the time, at Gianno Caldwell on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm not here to defend President Trump rhetoric that I disagree with. Some policies I agree with, some that I don't. But here's the thing. You got a group of folks that come into this country illegally, and we're in the city of Chicago right now, my hometown. This is a sanctuary city for those who are coming in illegally. But where's the sanctuary for the black people who were locked up via the 94 crime bill? Where were their sanctuary? Why is it that black folks get locked up, get thrown away, there's no mercy for any of us that do something, but you're going to let a whole nother group of folks come in because you want their support and you want to increase your power base? That's what the Democrats have done. Why is it that we continue to vote for Democrats, black folks, certainly not me, continue to vote for Democrats, but if you were African-American male between the age of 20 and 24 in the city of Chicago, 47% of you were unemployed or out of school. Why is that? Like, why is it that we continue to increase their power and mobility, but nothing happens for us? Now, let's talk about Trump. Again, if people read the book Taken for Granted, I talk about this viral moment that I had around Charlottesville, where I pushed back against the president hard to the degree that the White House was on my phone almost immediately. If I disagree with the president, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to be very proud to say that and push back on television. But what Trump has done in 2 to 3 years, and I know we're in a Democratic city, a lot of black folks are listening right now, the First Step Act, thousands of people released from jail, 90% of them being black. Opportunity zones, almost 9,000 of those in marginalized areas, mostly black. Jail reform, the lowest black unemployment rate in our history. These are positive things in 2 to 3 years. If you got a Democrat, let's say any other Democrat or any other Republican in office, we barely get one thing done. What did President Obama do for us?
Healthcare.
Healthcare for black folks, I'm talking targeted. What did Barack Obama do for black people specifically? Policy. Everyone, when I say that, people look around and say, well, I don't know. People usually say healthcare, like you say. But, I mean, we got Medicaid. Black folks can get that all day long if they're of a certain income status, certainly. But when we talk about targeted policies for black people, in 2 to 3 years, Trump has done a lot. So if he gets reelected or not, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, we are now better off because of the policy specifically. And that's what I'm happy about.
Wow.
I may not like the rhetoric, but the policy, I'm with it.
Okay. So doing this type of book, what do you hope to accomplish? What is your end goal for this?
So first and foremost, for people who pick up Taken for Granted, which is on Amazon or anywhere else where major books are sold, they'll notice this is not what you think initially. So people might think it's like a Trump support and Kool-Aid kind of book. It's not that at all.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a conservative. Yeah, I'm a Republican, but I'm for black people 100%. And sit on such a major platform like Fox News Channel, the #1 cable network in the country, and be able to pontificate on my views and disseminate a message that's empowering for black people before the masses, I think is a dope thing. So what do I talk about in my book? I talk about how I grew up, the challenges in which we face, how I made the transition in the Republican Party, how it was in my family structure, certainly breaking down some of the myths about the Republican Party, but also challenging things that I see as dysfunctional within the Republican Party structurally. So I talk about that, holding your party accountable, whether it be Democrats or Republicans. I talk about entrepreneurship, my faith. I'm a member of Living Word Christian Center in Forest Park, Illinois. Shout out to Dr. Bill Winston. So I talk about a lot of different things, but it's not what people would think. From the very first page, people would know, oh, this isn't what I thought, and they may not even think it's a conservative book.
Okay, awesome. I love what you're saying. We've had private debates.
Right.
We've had
You're
private
my brother,
debates.
though. You listen, though. That's the point. You listen. Most folks try to shut down conversation, but you actually listen. To your credit, we done hung out outside the studio, and I appreciate you. You're my brother, legitimately speaking. Yeah. And I know we got all this social media going. Again, ladies, I'm single. DM me at Gianno Caldwell, Gianno Caldwell, Caldwell. I like all type girls.
There it is, and that of course that is what he can't can't escape. That's the South Side mentality.
Hey.
Man, I appreciate you for stopping by. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, just in general, just because of the accomplishments that you've had coming from Chicago and the things that you're doing, and you constantly inspire people.
But going back to bring people with me, though, we can't be like, oh, I made it. No, you got to go back. And I come back to the city all the time, mentoring and everything else.
Absolutely. Gianno Caldwell, taking for granted how conservatism can win back the Americans, the liberalism, I can't get it out, failed. As you can see, I'm not that person that can say all those big words. I keep it short.